Okay, so now what we want to do is set this on the bottom side of this tubing and see how it fits, see how it swings into to our other piece there. Okay, we're way off on our angle. Whoa, how did we do that? Oh!
You cut the wrong side, didn't you?
I notched the wrong end. Okay, we found our front core support. We'll call them gusset plates. I don't know what they're called, but they help basically tie the blue part to the core support. And so we got them bolted down. And now you can see it takes some of the flex out of this core support. And so now I can really tell how far I need to slide this forward. And I've made a mark on there already where I like it. And so that's where it's going to end up getting welded. But before I weld that in, I need it to stay loose so I can take it out and use it as a pattern for the other side. So we're ready to make the other side, so let's do that. See, it's a pretty basic bar. It's just got two bends in it. And they're slightly different angles from one another, but not much. That's gonna really stiffen up the front of this truck, especially once we get it connected. We're gonna do a bar from here down to there. It's gonna really make a nice rigid ride. Okay, let's get the other one going here. So now that I've got that one made, the other one was 4.5 feet or whatever. So I kind of got an idea about how much I can cut off of it. So I'm just gonna go ahead and cut it a little bit shorter so we got less to deal with. There's about 1 foot that I don't need. I'm just gonna cut that and get rid of that. And that still leaves me about an inch extra on that end, just in case. Okay, so now we know, because we already did one, that this small bend was 17 degrees, and this one was 15 degrees. So I should be able to put this tube in here, as long as I put it in there the same way the other one was in there. Okay, should be right about there. Rotation doesn't matter on this first one. Sometimes you can just hold it up there to make sure. Looks about right. All right, let's go. Let's see, I got it where I can't twist it. We're at 0. As long as you don't move that, that should be in the same spot every time. We're going to 17. $15, $16, $17. Don't go anymore. Okay, now we can lay this one right on top of that one. Look at that. It's exactly the same. That's what we want. Even the ends are exactly the same in relation to where the bend is. That's perfect. That means we can duplicate the next one really stinking close. Okay? So now what we do is we lay this on top of here. Okay? First, let's make the mark on our first one a little bit better. Now this is the one that lined up with the back, I don't know what you call it, the tracer die. We're just gonna make that, see how that lines up right with the edge of the bend? Like this is flat and this is bent right there. This is right at the edge of the bend. That's why I like to mark that right there. Where the front of the big die, of this die, is not necessarily right at the edge of the bend, where that thing is, okay? So now that we've highlighted that one a little bit, let's lay this one on top. Make sure your angles line up, and if your ends are the same, line them up. Make sure that they're parallel all the way down, and now we can transfer that mark directly above right onto the new piece of tubing. And that's gonna, now all we have to do is line that mark up in the same spot on the bender and then get the angle correct with the angle finder and bend that to 15 degrees, and that should be exactly the same as the other one. Okay, so remember, always put it in the same way. That was our first bend, so we want it to go that way. We don't want to flip it around like this. I know it's tempting sometimes, but that throws you off. You always want to go the same direction so that you can keep track of how your bending is going, especially when you start flipping things around and doing things symmetrically. This way you can really keep track of everything. Okay, now right here, this is our line. See, there's our marker line. Okay, there it goes all the way back to you can't really see it from there, but it's lined up right here with this face, with that silver face. Okay, so now what we need to do is get this angle correct. Okay, so we turn this on. We don't have to worry about the bender being level on the floor because we're calling this 0, okay? So once we get that set on there, then we're gonna 0 it out. Right there. And now we're gonna move it directly out here, and I believe it was 1 degree up. Yeah, that one was 1 degree up. So this one, we want it to be 1 degree down. So that's about where it was. So there's 0. There's 0 right about there. So now we're gonna go 1 degree down, right about there. Okay? So in and out is correct, rotation is correct. Now let's go to 15 degrees. $14, $15. 1 to grow on. Okay. Now, if we lay these on top of each other, they should be exactly the same. Okay, we'll line up those ends. Our marks line up. Okay, we need to go just a little bit more. So our bend is actually off a little bit. So what I'm gonna do is just poke that out on this last little bend. I gotta go about another degree. What I'm gonna do is just poke this out a little bit more so that I can bend it a little bit further back, because this bend is a little bit further back. I must have, yeah, see here, I accidentally grabbed it in 2 different spots when I bent that one. So not a big deal, we can duplicate that on this one too. Okay, that's where it was. I'm gonna push it in just a little bit further. And then this should still be set at 0. Well, yeah, it's pretty close. Let's put this back at 1 degree. So there's about 0. There's 1 degree. Oh, might help if I plug in the air. All right, now where were we at? 16. Let's check it. Yep, I went too far. Just barely.
Now you can stick it in your magic hole.
Now let's stick it in the magic hole and unbend it. But the bend is in the right spot now. It lines up now. But now I just need to unbend that a little bit. Let's see. Yeah! Okay. All right. Let's see. Now let's match it up. And it's better. It's still a little bit off. I need more weight. More weight on me. Oh, I know. Hey, let's use that 75-ton press we got over there. I flattened it a little bit, but that's not that big a deal. Yeah, now I went a little too much the other way. All right, let's put it back in the bender. That should be it right there. Nailed it! Yeah, it's pretty stinking close. It's maybe like a 1/4 of a degree difference, but that's close. We're gonna call that good. Okay, now I should be able to test fit this in. Let me get a little grease on that end. Will it ever stop? Yo, I don't know. Okay, yeah, that went in there. Cool. So I wanted to know if that was gonna go in all the way so that I can not trim it right here. I wanna trim it based on that one so I can make it exactly the same. That way, because the bends are in the same spot, the angles are the same, if these front cut points are exactly the same, these tubes are gonna be exactly symmetrical. Where if I just kind of push that in there, I don't know exactly how far it is in relation to that one. If I trim it right now, I guarantee you it won't be exactly the same as that one. So I'm gonna pull it back out, trace it on that one, cut it, and then final grind it. Double check our bend mark lines up. And now we can pretty much nail that angle exactly. We'll leave it just about a 1/16 of an inch long so we can final grind it to fit the bracket. Okay, now we just got to final trim the end of this a little bit. But it lands on our pad right where the other one did, so that's a good sign. Let's check it. You take a little bit more off the top. Boom, there it is. We got a little bit of a gap on the bottom, but that's not bad enough where we can't TIG weld it. So basically, we landed in the same spot as that side. So yeah, we're ready for some tackage. We got a little bit of play there that we need to pay attention to. So whatever we do to one side, if we let this side sag, we need to let that side sag. Or if we pull this side up, we need to pull that side up. It's probably easier to just let it sag. That way we don't have to remember. So now what I'm gonna do is just clean the ends, clean the grease off of these ends. I'm not gonna tack, let's see, how am I gonna do that? So on that end, what we're gonna have to do is make a witness mark around the tube and across the tubes so that we can weld it on the back side, because I don't wanna weld it right here. That's just mainly for a cosmetic looks thing. It'll look a lot better if we don't weld it. So, but we can go ahead and clean them, install them, and tack these sides. All right, we got the TIG welder out. We're ready to tack these upper main bars to the front core support brackets and also to the rear firewall brackets that we did a while back. Now I'm gonna put a couple of tacks on those. I wasn't going to on the outside, but I definitely don't wanna weld the whole thing on the outside of those. But what I'm gonna do is put a tack on the bottom and a tack slightly around the corner on the outside that'll be completely out of sight later when we do inner fenders. I just don't want the main part of what you see to have a weld on it right there, because it'll look super clean with no weld right there. Now we are gonna weld these up here completely, so let me get those tacked in place. I've got a mark of where I want this one, so let's tack it first. Okay, It ain't going nowhere. All right, now I want to get this other one in the same spot. Okay, now I'm just gonna double check a couple of things. I'm just kind of eyeballing where they're at. Perfect. Those are about exactly the same side to side. So I'm gonna put a tack on the bottom of this one. And then once it's tacked, we'll unbolt that from the firewall. Actually, we don't need to do that right now. We can do that later. Okay, we got 2 tacks on that one. Okay, we got 2 tacks on that one. Now I know those are always going to be in the right spot. Okay, now we can go ahead and fully weld these front ones. So this is 120 wall tubing, which is about 1/8 inch. I've got it set at 148 amps. Actually, that might be a little too hot. I'm going to turn it down a little bit. 143. Here we go. Little tech tip for you guys. I don't know if it's really like proven, but what I'm using is a 2% serrated tungsten on this newer inverter Everlast welder. And the Cerakote or the serrated tungsten works okay, but I've noticed that the lanthanated works the best. I need to get some more lanthanated. The lanthanated has a blue end. Okay, so now when you get in a deep crevice like that, where the tubing is like this, you can bump your tungsten out a little bit more, because what that tubing does is it provides a little bit more cover for your shielding gas, where when it's an obtuse angle like this, you want your tungsten in tighter so that you can get down in there further. Okay, so these bolts are kind of in the way, so I need to be able to get down around those bolts. Just make sure you pump a little bit of gas in there first. Okay, and then I've just got one little section down there I need to get. I'm gonna pull my tungsten in just a little bit. Otherwise you risk getting a contaminated weld. Man, that turned out nice. All right, now we're gonna start looking at doing these down bars from connecting from here down to the frame. So we got a couple of things we need to consider. The most important thing we need to consider is tire turning radius. So I've got the tires turned. That is not completely lock to lock. So right now it's hitting the exterior of the fender. It's laying frame right now though, so that's as low as it would ever be. But it will turn sharper, but when it turns sharper, it'll be higher. So it'll be about 3 inches higher. So I don't think that that's gonna be an issue. If we were to make this, you know, pretty snug right in this zone here, I still don't really like the look of that. I mean, I like it at an angle about like that. But I think going straight down right there would be risky, like a direct shot. So I think we should put a bend in it. And so we'll kick this out a little bit. We'll fish mount this one right into this tube, and then bend it and point it straight down like that. So that'll come up and then bend like that. Sound cool? And so what that's gonna do is this will give us more room we can do a cool panel here, we can do a cool panel here. So the inner fender, definitely we want it to come right down to this panel on the frame. I don't know if you can see right here. So we definitely want the inner fender to come from right here down to there. but we also need to make sure that we have enough room for turning radius. So what we may do is, I guess it could come up there a little bit further. I don't know, I kind of like it at an angle. Yeah, I like it at an angle better. But main thing is we can get this fit and tack it in place and then check it. Check turning radius everywhere. Lock to lock, ride height, full tilt, everything. Just make sure that that's going to clear, because we're going to have an inner fender basically connecting from this surface to this surface. And so we want to make sure that that clears. I think we'll be okay if we do something about like that. All right, so we're getting ready to do this bar from here down to the chassis. So we want to just kind of get a rough idea of what that's going to look like. So I'm thinking something about like that with one bend in it. And the bend is going to be about 9 inches up from the short end. And then we're going to fish mount this end. So what we've done is cut some tubing here, rough cut to about 25 inches. That's going to give us a little bit extra material. So I'm going to start that bend at 9 inches, and that's going to be the mark that we line up in the bender. And that way we have a reference mark that we can mimic and duplicate on the other piece of tubing as well. So now we put it in the bender. Line that mark up with the edge. Put our collar on there. Now the rotation doesn't matter because we're only doing one bend. Okay, now what I do want to do is make sure that my mark is right where I wanted it, which it moved a little bit. So there it is. Now we're ready to bend. Okay, so I'm gonna just go until I can't move that tube anymore. Just go until I can't rotate it. Make sure your mark is still on point. Okay, right there, I can no longer rotate that tubing. That's 0. Okay, that's where we want to set this at 0. And look at that, we're pretty stinking close still. So I'm just going to adjust it a little bit. Now we're at 0, and now we can bend accurately. I'm guessing it's probably going to be about 25 or 30 degrees. There's 20. It's probably going to be more than that. There's 25. I think it's going to be more than that. I think it's going to be about 30. There's 30. Let's stop there and check everything. It's a 30-degree bend. Okay. Now, let's bring it over here and do some mockage. Okay, so, well, we could make that work if you want that bar down there to be at an angle. I was kind of hoping I could get it going straight down. Yeah, I think I want that bar going straight down. So, you know, if this one's gonna be basically right there, that one needs to bend about another 5 to 7 degrees. Now we'll go back to 30 because that's where it sprung back from. Okay, so we'll start at 30 and now we're gonna go to 35. Right there. Let's check that. We can always bend it more. It's easier to bend it more than it is to unbend it. Now we're getting somewhere. So obviously it wants to go back there, but you know, we got to kind of visualize how it's going to fit because we can't get it in there just yet. Let's bend it a little bit more. I think it needs about another 3 degrees. 36, 37, 38. So now what we can do is, because that one's just basically a miter cut, let's go ahead and trim it at an angle. That way we can more accurately establish our fish mouth at the top. I'm kind of guessing here, but that's about the angle that we need right there. We'll get it close and then we'll dial it in. Okay, we got our bend established. We got 38 degrees. I better write that on there before I forget. And this was 9 inches from the end. Okay, now we've rough cut the bottom and we've got it planted on our landing pad so that it's perpendicular and parallel with the core support. Okay, so now the next trick is getting this to land underneath there. So what we got to do is we got to get that established first, and then we're going to rough cut this at the correct angle of this tube, but we want to leave a little extra on there so that we can fish mouth it or cope it. So we're going to cut that with the bandsaw, and then we're going to rig up a notching end mill in the lathe, and we'll show you how to notch this and creep up on it until it's just right. We may need to bend it a little more depending on how it lands. We'll know that more once we get a little closer. It's too soon to tell right now. Okay, we're ready for some more sketchy operations on our lathe here. We're getting ready to notch this 1 5/8" DOM tubing on our lathe using a roughing end mill that's 1 5/8". Okay, so I've rigged up this old-timey vise to fit our degree wheel on the lathe. It's actually pretty legit. Like, it looks sketchy, but it works really well. So main thing you got to be careful of here is we want it to grip this tube really good, but it's got some teeth on there, so we want to make sure we don't damage the tube too much. I probably should have some soft jaws on there, but I don't. So we're gonna grab this guy like this, line up the angle. So now we rotate the angle on this like this, which I was already pretty close, about like that. And then we tighten that vise down so that it can't spin. We don't really need to look at the degrees on the angle finder there. It just needs to be what it needs to be. Make sure that guy's nice and snug so it's not going to move on us. And now I want to look at the up and down rotation of the tube in the vise jaws. Now we want to tighten those jaws really tight. Okay, now I'm going to back this away from the end mill. Now I'm going to put that kind of in the middle. You know, this is about 4 inches of width there. And we're going to bump it like that. Okay, now we want to use lots of cutting fluid on this. Same stuff we've always been using, Tap Magic. This is cutting fluid, not lubricating fluid. You do not want to use WD-40 on this. Okay, we're ready to rock. Let's tap on it once. Whoops, it moved a little bit. So let's tighten that down some more. We don't want that guy moving on us, because if it moves, this could be dangerous. So on the lathe, we've got a quick shut-off pedal down here if we get in trouble. So we're going to coat this pretty good, and then we're going to put some on the tubing here. I'm going to keep that stuff kind of handy. Is that right in a way? Mm-hmm. How about there? Is that better?
Yep.
All right, now we're going to hit this, and now we're just going to feed it into the tubing. Okay, I think I'm going to speed it up just a little bit. We're only at 40 RPMs right there. Let's go to 85 RPM. That's more like it. You just got to feed it slower now. All right, let's check it. Whew, that is sketchy. Okay, that's good, looking pretty close. Let's take it out. Can you see that? You want to see that in the light? Makes a really nice cope on that tubing. Okay guys, we got our secondary down bar. I don't know what the real name is for it. It's just going down to the chassis. So we've miter cut the bottom end and coped or fish mouth the top end using our lathe. That makes a really nice notch in there. Guys, this thing fits like perfect. So we've got it fitting up here, and then we've got the angle fitting down there. Now we've just got to position it just right when we tack it. So I'm gonna hold the bottom pretty much where it needs to be. And then once I get the bottom where I want it, then I'm gonna hold the top, kind of clamp it with my hand right about there and tack it. Okay, one tack is all it took to hold that on there. Now, before you get too crazy, let's go ahead and lock down the bottom somewhere. So there again, you want to you've got the opportunity right now to tug it around a little bit. So I'm going to make sure that it's centered on there. Put one fusion tack on it. Now you can just kind of stand back and make sure that it's what you want. Look at it from different angles. It's parallel with our core support, so that's good. At least the bottom half of it is. Looks like it's gonna clear our tire pretty good everywhere. We can check that real quick. Let's do that before we commit to welding this in solid. Let's jack it up and check full travel. Okay, so basically ride height's gonna be right about there. And we can turn lock to lock. I mean, we got mile right there. We got no problems at all right there. So really, I mean, we don't even need to check the other side. It's not even gonna be close, but what we can do is kind of check a worst case scenario, which I don't even think it's gonna be close. Yeah. It's never gonna get close to that bar. That's all the way out where we had it. And that's gonna be the worst case scenario. So we're totally fine on wheel clearance. Now, what we do need to watch out for is the back when we do our inner splash pan. But if you project it across like that, it's gonna be fine. Here, watch, I'll show you. Let's pretend like this is our inner fender going down to there. Look at that, we got tons of clearance right there. Now we can check that too at ride height. Let's do that. Not even close. We got plenty of inner fender clearance there. I mean, even if we wanted to come down to here, we could do that, but we're probably gonna come out there like that. Hey guys, I'm getting ready to weld up this cage bar that we just bent and notched, but stay tuned for the next video. We're gonna show you guys how to do some strip tabs attached to these roll cage bars, making some inner fenders, and possibly even using some of our dimple dies on these products, so stay tuned. Thank you for watching our latest video. If you guys would like to see more of what we have to offer here at HammerFab, such as our dimple dies, our bead roller dies, our assembly hammers, and everything else fabricated related, go to HammerFab.com. Thanks for watching.